Hi, my name's Kristen McCosh. I am a lifelong Boston resident. I grew up in South Boston, still live there, and I currently work as the Disability Commissioner and ADA Title II Coordinator for the City of Boston. So I became disabled when I was in high school. I was in a diving accident when I was in ninth grade. I was 15 years old, and it was 1983. So it was years before the ADA was passed. Nothing was accessible. And I really felt the impact. I mean, I went from a tall, athletic, popular young woman who was totally accepted by her friends and society and any restaurant she wanted to go into or any educational facility she wanted to go into. I went from that in an instant to someone who basically had no civil rights. My high school wasn't accessible. My home wasn't accessible. Trying to go out with my friends became really difficult. I didn't realize the impact it would have right away until I went through rehab and was recuperated and then started to go back out into the world. And it was quite an abrupt change to realize that I had previously had a life of privilege and acceptance and a bright future to, an instant change to basically no civil rights, no hope for a future, no opportunities. It was the era, the 90s were the era, the 80s, sorry, were the era of no false hope. So the doctors, the medical community didn't give me any hope. Luckily, I had family and friends who pulled me through the worst of it, but it was quite a change to go from being able-bodied to becoming pretty much totally disabled in an instant. So I did end up going back to high school after my injury. You can't see it on screen, but I have a C5-6 spinal cord injury. So I use a wheelchair. I'm paralyzed from the chest down. I did go back to high school. My mother and I worked with the school community to arrange all my classes to be on the first floor. So I was able to go back to high school and graduate with my class. And I was really proud of that because my 15-year-old brain couldn't comprehend the idea of going to a school where nobody knew me before I was disabled. Because even though my body had changed, my identity hadn't changed. So I didn't think of myself as disabled. I was still Kristen. I was 15 years old. I was hanging out with my friends. I had a bright future. And that's the image that I held of myself. And thinking about people meeting me who didn't know me that way was scary and I didn't want to do it. So I was able to go back to my own high school and graduate with my class. So I really was excited about it. And that kind of actually led me into the advocacy community because I met my husband when I was in college. And we always joke around that for the first 5 years we dated, he had to carry me in everywhere because even though the ADA passed in 1990, we started dating in 1991 and nothing was accessible because it took years for architectural access to catch up with the law. So I noticed a huge difference, like probably 10 years down the line after the ADA, but right away, there wasn't a huge impact that I noticed. But again, I wasn't in the advocacy community. I was just trying to live my life as a Boston resident who had a disability. When I had my injury, I said I was 15 and I was obviously still living at home, nuclear family. I have Irish Catholic roots. My grandparents on my mother's side were from Ireland, and my grandparents on my father's side were like a generation removed from Ireland as well. So we had a very tight-knit, small family. It was me, and I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother, but we were 3 under 3. So we were, right in a row. I'm in the middle. We always got along really well. We were really close to each other. And growing up in South Boston at the time, in the 80s, there were tons of kids. And so we all had the same friends because all the families had a bunch of kids and they were all our ages. So I have a core group of friends who I'm still friends with today. We get together once a month. And it was really the community that did so much to pull me through. Attitude is a huge factor in disability. I would say my own attitude as well as attitudes that I ran into with people when I was out in public. So in 1983, when I had my injury, I was a young girl. All young girls are pretty and they dress nice. And, I didn't look sick. I was just in a wheelchair. So I really felt the stares. I felt like everybody was staring at me and there was something wrong with me. And I just wanted to shout out that I'm the same as you. I'm not really in a wheelchair. I'm not really disabled. This was just an accident I had. So I did not, I don't want to say accept it, but I never took on that identity for years and years and years later. I still wanted to fit in. I wanted people to know that I wasn't born with a disability. That was really important to me. And it wasn't until I fully felt comfortable in my own skin that I came came to a reconciliation with myself that I am disabled and there's nothing wrong with that. I absolutely think of myself as part of the disability community and I love my community. Like I said, for a long time, I did not want to see myself as disabled. That wasn't me. That wasn't the real me. But now, for years now, I've fully embraced it. And, because at the time it was still, when I became disabled, it was still kind of like a tragedy. And I did a lot of peer mentoring with the group I'm involved with at Spalding for people with new spinal cord injuries. And that actually helped me come to like a greater acceptance, because I saw when, younger kids, teenagers were having spinal cord injuries today, it was almost like just like an athletic accident. They went right back to school because the high schools are accessible. They could go out with their friends because there's so much adaptive equipment. When I had my injury, there wasn't even a field of what they call recreational therapy or rec therapy. That's a huge field now. And it allows people with disabilities to find like things they like to do in their free time, whether it's a computer game or sports or, like rowing or, wheelchair basketball. Huge field, but they didn't have anything like that when I was hurt. Of course, there were no computers, but it was basically like I did rehab and I went home and I was on my own. So I didn't know what existed. But when I, got out into the world and then I found my people, other people with disabilities, it was really like a homecoming, because I was like, wow, we're going through the same things. And I had people to talk to about it. And if I could help people through my struggles or through my experience, I was all for that. So really, when I started mentoring was when I really started to say, okay, we're all in this together. And this is a really strong community. And we need to keep fighting, because, younger kids now don't remember, they don't know what the world was like before it was accessible.